All right, welcome to Cooking for Nieces and Nephews. Today, because it's Thanksgiving, we're going to be making mashed potatoes with this wonderful potato. All right, so you can see everything you need to get started here. We have a knife, a potato peeler, potato, cutting board, salt, cream, butter, a bowl, and the immersion blender. You could use a masher if you want, or a blender. But we're going to get going to start with peeling the potato. Okay, and so, you know, there are lots of versions of potatoes. This is a russet potato. You might find that you see these the most. They make French fries, but there are places in the Andes where villages used to grow 12 different varieties of potatoes. So this is just one variety. Potatoes, you may or may not have known, were domesticated in the Andes. Certainly the Incans had some influence in that. Early potatoes were poisonous and people couldn't really eat them, but then they saw that animals like llamas were licking clay before they ate the potato, and they found that if they as people dunked the potatoes into clay and water, almost like dunking a donut, that they could eat the potatoes. Slowly, over time, people found that they could change the potatoes by the way that they bred them, and they became less poisonous. The reason they were poisonous is they have these glycoalkaloids in them to do the potatoes, and those glycoalkaloids include things like solamine and tomatine. So they got rid of those because potatoes are from the nightshade family. Interestingly, if you didn't know, sweet potatoes are not in the same family, and you can eat their leaves, which you can't eat tomato leaves. So that's kind of interesting. So now I'm going to cut the potato. We skinned it because I just don't like the color. But that said, you don't have to skin it. You could leave on the skin with lots of the potassium in it, but I like to skin it. So now we're going to cut it. All right. Potatoes came to Europe in the Columbian Exchange. That was when Columbus and then other people came to America and exchanged goods, ideas, people, sadly also diseases. When we cut this potato, about an inch every piece, no bigger than like an inch square, is good. So we only have one potato. The potato made such an influence on Europe that women put potato leaves or flowers in their hair and men put it in their buttons on their lapel. So that's kind of fun. It was making a big difference. I'm just going to get rid of these really quickly. All right, so I'm back. I got rid of the potato skins. Now we're going to rinse the potatoes. And we rinse the potatoes to get rid of the starch. All right, and you can rinse them even after you boil them as well. And then getting rid of the starch kind of helps them to fluff better. So we'll just kind of rinse them, and you can see the water change color a little bit. Potatoes actually were important to some agricultural developments that we're all very familiar with. The first fertilizer was used to help grow potatoes, and that was from guano, which some of you may know is from birds. It's their droppings, and it's high in nitrogen, and it helps potatoes grow. Potatoes also brought about the first pesticide, and that was discovered by accident when a farmer put some Paris green paint onto his potato plants, and they lived a little better. That Paris green paint, you might be surprised to learn, had arsenic in it, so that's why it killed the potato beetle, which was what was causing a huge problem for the potatoes. Okay, next thing we're going to do is we're going to boil the potatoes we've just made. Okay? So you start with the water not boiling, and then you add the potatoes, and then we're going to put it on and turn it to high so the potatoes boil. Now, while that's happening, this takes about 10 minutes or so. So other things to note about the potato as this is boiling is that we associate with the potato with the Irish potato famine, because so many poor people in Ireland were eating so many potatoes. When the potatoes became, got a sickness, then people started to die, because 40% of Irish people at that time ate no solid food but potatoes. And what's crazy about that is the Irish population has still not recovered to the levels it was at in 1840. What's, I think, the most unexpected part about the potato, since we think about it with the Irish potato famine, is that there were actually many, many fewer famines in Europe after the introduction of the potato. So even though it's most famous for there being a famine, it actually prevented lots of famines in Europe. All right, so we're going to let this boil. We're going to take a little break, and we'll see you in a second. You can also salt the water. It can help to get the salt into the potatoes. So we'll salt the water before it starts boiling. So we're getting much closer. You'll notice, and I didn't mention before, that all we really tried to do was cover the potatoes in the water. But we are getting there, maybe another minute. All right, I think they're probably done, so let's try again. And we'll go in there, we'll find one I can hit with the fork. It feels pretty good, but I didn't get a hole. Maybe still one more minute. We're not quite there. All right, I think we're definitely ready to go. Yep, that fork went right into it. So then we're gonna turn off our stovetop, and we're gonna take our pan or pot with the water, and we're just gonna pour it out, and we'll use the top to make sure that we get the water out. You can also use a strainer. That's probably, it's another option. And once we get all the water out, all right. And then we're gonna pour the potatoes into our bowl, and we're gonna be ready to do the mashing. With the mashing, I'm gonna enlist Laura's help, and we're not gonna technically mash. We're gonna whip them with our immersion blender. All right, so we only did one potato, which is about 2/3 of a pound. So that means that we're only gonna use 1/3 cup of cream and 2 tablespoons of butter, and then salt to taste. That's the most important part. You should keep adding salt until the flavor doesn't improve. So what we'll do, so right here I have 2 tablespoons of butter. So we'll just put that in. Some people say to melt the butter. I find the potatoes are normally warm enough, you don't need to. And then we have our cream right here, and we're gonna do 1/3 cup. Sorry, I think I said 2/3 earlier. That was incorrect. We're gonna do 1/3 cup. So I have a question for everyone. What do you think is the largest potato ever grown? All right, so think about that. And here we go. We're gonna start adding some salt. All right. So 3 little bunches to start with. So we're gonna start using the immersion blender now. The immersion blender is nice. It's not quite as much like when you use a egg beating blender. Sometimes it throws things all over the place. The immersion blender doesn't throw things around as much, but you still might make a mess. Has anyone decided how large they think the largest potato ever grown was? Do you think it would be the size of a baseball? That seems kind of small, since our potato today was larger than that. The size of a football? I don't know. I can tell you what country it was grown in. It was grown in Lebanon. All right, so if you thought the largest potato ever done was 25 pounds, you are right. So we're gonna taste this, and 25 pounds, and it was bigger than a guy's head. So that's pretty good, but it needs more salt. And as I said, you should keep adding salt until it doesn't taste better. So some people like to mash their potatoes, as I said before. I like whipping them, but you could just mash them. Some people like lumps. You shouldn't be afraid of lumps. Pretty good. Laura, do you want a Thanksgiving portion?
Sure.
Happy Thanksgiving!
Happy Thanksgiving!